Today we'll be talking about ancestor verification. So, veneration. So, what is ancestor veneration? Ancestor veneration is you communicating or embodying the essence of your ancestors. We feel like once someone transitioned that they're no longer here. We may not be able to see them, but their spirit is still here. When we transition, people call it death, but in reality, it's really rebirth. When we come into this human body, we're not this human. We're the spirit within the body. So that means after we transition, we're going to continue to live. We're going to continue to be because we're forever existing. So that being said, I started communicating or working with my ancestors maybe 6 years ago, almost 7 years ago. And I always knew I had some type of connection to the spiritual realm, the dead, the unseen, the spirits. From a young child, I had premonitions. I will see things happen before they happen. I will see people transition before they transition. So, a couple years ago, when I started my spiritual journey and learning about my roots, I started researching certain things and I started giving power to myself and my ancestors. A lot of people don't know, once you start doing that healing work and you start healing that trauma and you start getting past things, in a way, you're honoring your ancestors. In a way, you're healing your ancestors. A lot of people feel like, oh, you talking to the dead or you honoring your ancestor, that's demonic. But in reality, we was only taught that it's demonic. We was only taught that you shouldn't do that. And I feel if you can honor other spirits or entities that's no longer here, then you can honor someone that actually came from your bloodline. So that being said, once you start healing what you need to heal within yourself, you're healing past generations, you're healing future generations. What we don't realize is if we are our ancestors and we have our ancestors' DNA within our being, that means when I start doing the healing work, they started to heal. People before me start to heal. Regardless if they're not in this human body, regardless if they're no longer in this physical realm. So once I started doing that healing work and I started working on some things that I needed to work on, that's when I started having visions and dreams of my ancestors. I remember a couple years ago, I had a dream. It was on a beach. I can tell the ancestors was of an African descent. They had, I think, white shirts, pink and blue skirts. They was long skirts, and they was on the beach. And it was like a beach house right there. And they was all happy and they was partying, they was having a good time and stuff. And then I remember them telling me to go into this beach house. And when I went into this beach house, somebody else was behind me, as in once we start to awake and once we start doing the healing, it is certain energies and entities that don't want you to do the work, that don't want you to do the healing work, that don't want you to elevate. So who I seen, it was a white man with a black suit on. And what it reminded me of is Matrix, Mr. Anderson. Once you start to wake up from the illusion that was given to you or that is a part of this programming, you start to see certain things. And they know that you're not like everybody else. They know that it's something different about you. You're doing something different. You're not acting like everybody else. You're not doing what we tell you to do. So that being said, once I started to awaken to who I was and start doing the healing work, is when I started getting more and more visions and premonitions, and I started communicating with them more. Just by you speaking their names, we feel like once this person transitions, we can no longer talk about them. We can no longer bring them up. Yes, it could be sad and stuff when we bring up people from the past, but in reality, that's what keeps them alive. That's what keeps them going. A lot of people that's no longer here feel like they're forgotten about. And I remember having a dream of my stepdad. So my stepdad gave me my name, Mariah. I remember having a dream about my stepdad, and my stepdad in the dream was crying, as in he was forgot about, as in this is the type of life I lived while I was in my human body, and people perceive me this type of way as a bad person. But I don't want you to perceive me that way. I don't want you to see me that way. And I had to let him know, I don't see you that way. I don't feel like you're a bad person. Just because other people assume this about you or perceive you this way, I don't see you that way. So I started realizing the spiritual work, the healing, the communication, the receiving messages from the other side was working, because the fact that he even showed up in my dream after all these years just showed me something. Another incident, I want to say about 2 years ago, I had a dream. I had a close friend of mine, a childhood friend of mine, take her life a couple years ago. And the same night that she took her life, I had a dream of us being in school. Now, we went to school, I think, 2nd grade through 5th grade. She was in 1 grade older than me, I think. But I was in, 2nd grade to 5th grade. And she took her life a couple years ago. And in that dream, it was like we was in school, and she was going this way and I was coming this way. And she was looking at me. And I feel like that was her crossing over to the other side. So as I'm still doing healing, and I'm doing the spiritual work, and I'm elevating, and I'm doing things for my ancestors, I remember having another dream. And in that dream, which was a couple years ago, in that dream, I asked her, I said, is the ancestor work I'm doing helping? Is it helping y'all? Because just because she was a friend, she's still considered an ancestor. An ancestor don't just have to have your blood. Majority of your ancestors do have your blood, but an ancestor don't just have to have your blood. An ancestor can be a godmother. An ancestor can be a close family of the friend, a close friend of the family. So I remember me asking, have the ancestor work I've been doing, have it been helping? And she said yes. So that's just confirmation on top of confirmation that what I'm doing is translating over to the other side. So different ways you can honor your ancestors, or different ways to start giving honoring or appreciation to your ancestors, is you first doing the healing work. A lot of the times we get passed on trauma. We get whatever is in your DNA, or whatever traits your parents had or your grandparents has, get passed on to you, whatever trauma. Like I said in one of my last videos, if my mother and her mother and her mother all carried each other, for example, if my great mother had the eggs of my grandma and my mother within her womb, that means whatever trauma that my great grandmother was dealing with, whatever she was going through, translated over to what she was carrying within her womb. So that being said, we have things that's from generations ahead of us that we may feel like we have no connection to, but in reality it's still affecting us. And in reality, it's getting passed on to the next generation, because either they're unaware or they have not healed it yet. So when I was in my journey of healing myself and healing, you can say, my mother's side of my family, I started realizing a lot of traits that has been passed on with the women in my family. And I can just be like, oh, I don't see that. Oh, let me not deal with that. Oh, that's a lot of work to heal that. Or let me just act like I don't see it. But why not I be the person to break these generational curses? Why not I be the person to heal what I need to heal so I don't pass it on? Regardless if I do not have kids or not. I have nieces, I have nephews. Why don't I be the person that say, I'm going to do something different and I'm going to heal some stuff? So I feel like before I even came down here, I chose to do the work. I chose to be the person to say, okay, this in my bloodline, but I'm going to heal this. Yeah. This in my bloodline, but we're going to get through this. Yeah. this in my bloodline, but we're not going to sit here and avoid it. We're not going to sit here and act like it didn't happen. We're not going to sit here and act like it's okay. We're not going to do that. So me being that person, I started realizing more and more and more things started to come out for me to look into and to know that I have the power to transmute this energy. I have the power to break this generational curse. So, different ways. Another way you can honor your ancestors. If you went to church, you know, in the church it's okay to have an altar. In the church, they have a whole altar with candles, with water, with all these offerings to this spirit. You're giving energy, you're giving honoring to this spirit while you're in the church. I said, why don't I give honoring and energy to the spirit that's actually a part of my bloodline? So I start giving offerings of food. I start giving offerings of water. I start giving offerings of alcohol. They call alcohol spirits for a reason, don't they? So that being said, I start doing all these things to elevate. What we don't realize is, if a person in your family transition out of this life, say they got unalive, if they transition out of this life in a traumatic way, on the other side, they're still dealing with that same type of energy. On the other side, they may be in fear. On the other side, they're still in possibly a karmic loop. People think just because you're not in this human body that you still don't have things that you have to heal or get past or accept. Because a lot of the times, spirits that do not heal, or spirits that feel like they wasn't able to continue their life before it got taken, they get stuck here. They get bound here because they have not elevated their spirit, because they have not healed what they need to heal. So we have spirits on the other side that is needing and wanting our help, that is needing and wanting us to acknowledge them. It's all about acknowledgement. We can acknowledge all these celebrities when they pass. Oh, I'm so sad about this person passing, but you didn't even know that person. What I feel is most important is you getting to know yourself. And once you get to know yourself, your ancestors will be there because your ancestors are part of you. So the thing is, we was taught to look for things and entities and beings and spirits outside of ourselves. But if you're here today, you are a walking, talking example of your ancestors. So that being said, when we talk about honoring our ancestors, the fact that I am even doing the work is doing something. The fact that I am on this journey is doing something. And I feel I was at a point in my journey where I was like, everything that they told me to run from, I'm going to run towards, because it is a reason. It is a reason why y'all telling me to run from this. How I know y'all not honoring y'all ancestors? How I know y'all not giving offerings to y'all ancestors? And media, social media, the media, movies, demonize all these things that is ancient to us, that is normal to us. Reading tarot cards was not demonic to our ancestors. Learning how to navigate using the stars was not demonic to our ancestors. Giving offerings to people who came before us was not demonic to our ancestors. That was known. That was normal. But if you was to take someone out of a certain environment and place them into a new environment, and tell them, here, take these traditions, here, take this knowledge, here, take this information. Of course you wouldn't remember your roots. Of course you wouldn't remember who you are. Of course you wouldn't remember where you come from, because you've been gave something else. They told you to, they snatched what was really yours and say, here, take this. I'm going to give you this. And I'm going to tell you it's yours, and what's really yours, I'm going to say it's demonic. And I'm going to say, you're gonna go to hell if you do this. But how I know? How I know you're not doing everything you told me not to do? How I know that this is really demonic just because you said it was demonic? How I know you're not doing magic? How do I know that? All these things that we was told to stay away from or not to do, they're really doing. So once I start realizing, I'm gonna dig deeper. I'm gonna go in. I'm gonna go in within myself. I'm going to go in within myself, and I'm gonna question some things. I'm gonna see, okay, what was my ancestors doing before? What kind of people was they before? How was they before? What was their traditions before? Okay, I know that I take on the traits and characteristics of my ancestors and the trauma of my ancestors, but I also take on the positive things, the strength, the power, the intuition, the knowingness, the oneness. I take on all these positive traits too. So I'm not just one way. I don't just take on the trauma that comes from them. I take on the good shit too. So that being said, a lot of us is walking around with all these abilities and all these traits for us to tap into, and we don't do it because we're scared, because we have fear, because we've been taught to fear this. Why do you think we've been taught to fear this? Out of all the things you could tell me to fear, why would you tell me to fear my own self? Why would you tell me to fear my ancestors? That doesn't make any sense. So when I start realizing that, and I start looking into myself and asking myself the questions, what I feel is true to my heart, what I feel is deep to my soul, not something that, oh, because this generation before did it, I'm gonna do it too. But I seen no type of growth, but I seen no type of elevation, but I seen suffering. So I'm gonna do something different. Okay, I'm gonna try something different. That's what I'm going to do. I'm not gonna do what the other people in my bloodline has done. So when I start questioning and I start asking these questions within my being, that's where the answers started to come. The answers started to come once I stopped being scared. Stop being scared of myself. Stop being scared of my power. That's when the questions and the answers. Because once you start asking one question, baby, you're going to have multiple questions after that. You're going to want to know, okay, if they told me not to honor my ancestors, maybe I have more power than what I feel I do. Maybe it's something deeper they don't want me to know. Maybe it's something they're hiding. Maybe they telling me to look this way. Maybe I need to look this way. Like, once I start questioning all these things is when I started to wake up more, and that's when my ancestors started to wake up more. And I had to realize it's not always ancestors that is a part of your bloodline that wants you to do good, that wants you to do great. It is some ancestors that was suffering while they was here, and they don't want you to do better than them because they didn't have that type of awareness, or they didn't have that type of knowing within themselves to know that they can tap in. So when I talk about honoring ancestors, I'm not just saying honor every ancestor, because not every ancestor wants you to thrive. Not every ancestor wants you to be your best version of you. So I start making me an altar, and I start lighting candles, and I started giving offerings, and I started saying prayers to elevate, to heal, to overcome my bloodline. I know I'm not just this human body. I know I'm the spirit within the body. And on this mission, I decided I'm going to wake up and I'm going to do the work. And even though I know I'm the spirit within the body, it is some type of elevation that is happening within my spirit, within my soul. And by me doing this work, by me signing this contract and deciding I'm going to be the person in this bloodline to do the work and to actually acknowledge what's been happening, I'm going to do something different. I chose that. So, and nobody said that this work was going to be easy. Nobody said that, oh, once you start doing the healing work or once you start doing the ancestor work, that was going to be peaches and creams, baby. Because with healing and with healing your bloodline comes pain. But what we don't remember, with pain comes transformation. And if we have the ability to transform and transmute, we have the ability to transform and transmute everything that our bloodline or everything that we've been through. And also, being on this journey, I've realized they've been telling me to wait till somebody else come to save me. And once I start realizing that no one else is coming to save me, it's nobody coming to save me, is when I really started to wake up to myself. I started to wake up to my being and my essence of what runs between my vessels in my blood, what is in my heart, what is in my soul. So when I start doing the work and start listening to the calling that I had on the inside, is when so much more started to open up. And I realized I don't want to wait for somebody else to come to heal. I don't want to transition to the other side for me to have to heal. I don't want to be, oh, I'm going to wait. What I'm waiting on? Baby, what we waiting on? Because tomorrow is not promised. And we know that when we came into this realm, we signed a contract. And we don't know when that contract gonna be. When that contract gonna end. So I'm gonna be the person that's saying, why wait when I can do it? When I can be the person to elevate this, to elevate myself. Because it's all about elevation. It's all about growth. It's all about you realizing and you remembering who you truly are. And a lot of cultures, like I've said it before in my old video, ancestors in your DNA. A lot of cultures honor their ancestors. A lot of cultures give acknowledgement to their ancestors, but we're America is one of the only people that don't really take importance to their ancestors. I wonder why. I wonder why y'all do not give honor to y'all ancestors. I wonder why y'all don't talk about your ancestors. I wonder why. Once I started questioning, it was a wrap. Once I started questioning and wanting to know more, it was a wrap. So you telling me it's not just red and blue? So you telling me it's more colors on this color spectrum? That's what you telling me? Okay. So you telling me it's more angles? Okay. Okay. And within these angles, it's different dimensions. And we have the ability to tap into all this. We have the ability to tap into all these dimensions. We're not just living on a surface level reality. We have the ability to see multiple dimensions, to tap into multiple dimensions. We know that because when we go to sleep, we go into a different realm. What do you call the place that you go when you go to sleep? The astral realm. The astral realm is where you go when you go to sleep. And that's when you're your freest because you have no fear. You're flying, you're jumping on walls, you're doing all these amazing things. You know how many portals I didn't see in my dream? Do you know how many portals I've seen in my dream? I've been in space. I've been in different timelines. I've time traveled. I had a dream, I think a week ago. It was me and my wife, and it was like We was in the present moment, but we was in a different timeline at the same time. So it was like two different timelines playing out at once. So you telling me time really not real? So you telling me time is an illusion? Because how can I be at two different timelines at once? And then that goes back into parallel universes. So if death is an illusion and time is an illusion, wouldn't that mean that its timeline still playing out? Wouldn't that mean that it is things still happening in different timelines that we can't see? I don't know if y'all seen the movie. I think it's called Superman. Is it Superman? I think it's Superman. The newest Superman. And in the movie Superman, they made a portal, and within the portal, it was like they made a human portal with some type of technology that they had, and they was able to go into a different dimension using this portal. So that's letting you know that we have access to different dimensions and different timelines. So if it's technology out here, if it's technology out here for us to tap into different dimensions, don't you think we have that same technology within our being? Don't you think that we have the same power to tap into that different realm within our being? If we can do it while we sleep, if we had that much awareness as we have when we sleep, imagine what we can tap into while we up. Imagine that shit. Imagine how deep this shit really can get if we was to tap in to these different aspects of ourselves that we think are dormant. Because what really make DNA dormant is you not being aware of it. You not having awareness of this power within your being. That's really what dormant DNA is. Dormant DNA is sleeping DNA. The DNA that they told you that didn't matter. The DNA that they told you was just regular DNA. How is that the case when we have all these people doing all these things? Moving water, moving clouds. I seen my godmother at the beginning of my journey move some clouds out the sky because she wanted it to be a sunny day. What would you call that? Something within the DNA had to wake up. Something within the being had to wake up. Some type of activation had to happen for you to even be able to tap into that type of power. But they want you to just think that you're human. They want you to just think that you're just human and you're living in your reality and all this is real. That's what they want you to think. So when I stopped participating in this illusion, in this reality, is when I started to wake up. And the more that I wake up, the more that they wake up. I have ancestors that have done what I'm doing, even more. And when I say ancestors, I'm not just saying ancestors from this timeline, because if we're going to talk about it, we're going to talk about it. When I say ancestors, I'm talking about ancestors from different timelines. If we have the ability to be in multiple timelines at once, and we have multiple past lives, wouldn't that mean that I have multiple ancestors from different timelines, from different incarnations? Wouldn't that mean that? So once I started to realize that, recently, I had a dream of one of my ancestors on my dad's side, which I'm not close to my dad's side or my dad. And the way that they showed this ancestor was by her being on a TV screen. Mind you, I only seen this ancestor maybe once in life. She transitioned a couple years ago. I would think I was like probably 14. And they played her on the TV screen. And I found it very interesting because Why didn't y'all show her in regular human or spirit form? So I feel like by me doing this work, it's not just activating one side, my mom's side, but it's activating my dad's side too. So once I started pouring into myself and start digging deep within myself and within my being, I had no other choice but to do the work. I had no other choice but to heal. That's like finding out that the sky is blue, and because you didn't like the sky is blue, you went back to sleep and say, nah, the sky really is purple. Once you wake up from what you feel is real or what you feel is reality, is once you cannot go back to sleep. Why would you want to go back to sleep in the first place? Why would you want to say, nah, forget everything I just learned, forget everything I just healed? That makes no sense. Like, what are we doing this for? What are we doing this healing work for? It's bigger than us. It's bigger than this realm. It's bigger than everything that we can see. So why not do the work that your soul decided to come back and do? Why not say, this time, okay, in my past life, I probably didn't get this far, but this time, baby, we're going to do something different. This time, we're going to tap in a little more. Okay, I learned what I need to learn in my past life, so I ain't going to make that mistake again. Oh, it is some things I need to learn. Okay, we're going to go through this, and we're going to get through it, and we're going to heal it, and we're going to overcome it. So, that being said, everybody be wanting the power, but nobody wants to do the work. Everybody want the acknowledgement, but nobody wants to do the work. It's been times on my healing journey where I felt like I said in my past video, I feel like I didn't got drugged. And I say drugs on a spiritual level, because when you start doing the work, it's not going to be pretty all the time. That's why everybody doesn't decide to do the healing work. Some people just act like it doesn't exist. Some people just act like it's not their issue or their problem. But what's not healed in one is going to be passed on to another. A lot of people make the excuse, oh, my parents didn't teach me that, or I was raised like this, da-da-da-da-da-da. But what is you going to do different? How are you going to change what is known or normal in your bloodline? Because we could continue to make excuses and say, well, I didn't learn this, or my parents did this to me or treated me this way, so I'm going to pass it on to mine or pass it on to my descendants. But you have the choice. You have the choice to say, I'm going to do something different, and I'm not going to make excuses on how my parents raised me, or I'm not going to say my parents did this to me, so I'm going to do this to mine. Because you're passing it on. And a lot of the times, parents don't even feel they can learn from their kids. A lot of the times, parents feel like, because I'm the parent, I know everything. But in reality, what we have to realize is just how a child can learn from the parent can learn from the child. And we forget that when a baby comes into this world, they're the closest, outside of elderly people, they're the closest to the astral realm. Because they're just coming from that essence. So because they're just coming from that essence, they're able to connect and see spirits on the other side. They're able to pick up on energy. You give your baby to somebody that don't have good energy, that baby gonna start crying, and it's for a reason. So that being said, when we talk about ancestors, you're not just doing work for them, you're doing work for yourself. And once you start realizing everything in a way is a form of self-love, even you healing, even you doing ancestor work, all this always leads back into self-love, no matter what. So that being said, I know that the work I've been doing has been helping. I've seen it. I hear it. I get confirmations all the time. So tap into yourself. Tap into your bloodline. Because if you don't do it, who else gonna do it? We got ancestors on the other side that's been waiting for somebody to come save them. And we're not meant to save nobody but ourselves. But by you doing the work, by you healing and acknowledging, you're doing something on the spiritual side. What you're doing in the physical is translated to the spiritual side, and vice versa. We got ancestors that's still in the loop of poverty mentally. We got ancestors that's still in the loop of slavery mentally. We have inserting loops. It get passed on. We feel that shit. If you feel it, you can heal it. So that being said, we gotta stop avoiding. We gotta stop acting like we don't see it, like we don't hear it. Because it's there. It's there. And it's there. My bad, y'all. Somebody was calling. But it's there for a reason. And sometimes we forget that. Sometimes we forget what we came back here to do. And like I said in my past video, I'm not saying you can't have fun. I'm not saying you can't enjoy yourself. I'm not saying you can't live life. But I'm saying this shit is bigger than what may seem. This shit is bigger than what they want you to feel. And once I start realizing that it is bigger, is when things started to wake up within my being, within the world, within my bloodline, within all that. So I speak power over you and your ancestors, that they elevate, that they heal, that they overcome, that they get out of a scarcity mindset, that they have strength, that they have power, that they have wisdom, that they can overcome any and everything. You are your ancestors. When you see me, you're not just seeing me. So that being said, if we have ancestors from all timelines, all dimensions, if I got some ancestors that was giants, if I got some ancestors that was mermaids, if I got some ancestors that was titans, gods, goddesses, what that make me? There's something to question. Like I always say, y'all tap into yourself. Question for yourself. Sit with yourself. And do your research. Do your research. Tap in within you. Ask them questions. Ask them uncomfortable questions. Because if you don't heal you, who gonna heal you? I'm done waiting on people. I'm done waiting on outside things to heal me, to come to me, to save me. Baby, I am my superhero. Period. I am my superhero. So I thank y'all. I love y'all. If y'all resonate with this or resonate with my channel, please like and subscribe. Until next time, healing honey. Peace.